The Journey of Meaning, Part 8, How it Relates to Patient Voice Research and Health Communication. For as long as I can remember, health communication has traditionally been divided into a number of different disciplines: health literacy, linguistic validation, information design, public health messaging, health promotion, and more recently, the role of AI in communicating health messages. Each is in its own silo, each with its own theories, methods and terminology, and hardly ever interacting with the others. In fact, in some cases many do not even know about the existence of the other. Yet, they are all trying to answer the same questions. How do people understand illness? How do designers of health information make illness and treatments understandable? Some parts of illness are easy to see. You can see a broken leg on an X-ray, you can measure cholesterol from a blood test, you can see a tumor on a scan, but nobody can see your pain or measure your fatigue just by taking a look at you, or your anxiety or breathlessness for that matter. And these can only ever be partially measured by clinical outcome assessments. Emotions like fear, hope or loneliness are private experiences, but we know they are real, even though we cannot see them directly. So, how do you explain something that you can only feel? People get around this problem in many different ways, and it is all by using various devices of figurative language such as metaphor. It burns, my chest feels tight, I feel really heavy. Others compare their illness with something more familiar, such as, it's like I am walking through treacle, or it's as though someone is sitting on my chest. And some tell the story of how it all started, how life changed, and how they are coping now, or not. Others keep coming back to the same metaphors: living in a fog, fighting a battle, drowning, being trapped in a prison. This is how they understand and how they articulate their illness. And some people don't have any words at all. Instead, they point, gesture, draw pictures, or are simply silent. All of these are valid ways in which people explain what it is like to be ill. And all of these need to be accommodated in activities such as patient voice research. Metaphors, stories, pictures, gestures must never be seen separately. Some people may use a combination of all these strategies depending on their experiences, culture, language, illness and personality, as well as personal circumstances and biographies. If you listen carefully to patients, you will notice something interesting. Patients rarely stick to only one way of explaining what is happening to them. Someone with long-term pain might begin with a simple description: my shoulder hurts when I lift my arm. Then later in the conversation they might describe as burning. Then they might try to help you imagine it. It's like touching a hot oven. Later they might reach for a different kind of metaphor. The pain is eating away at me. And then they might describe what kind of impact it has had on them. I don't feel like myself anymore. The patient is talking about their experience with one and the same illness, and none of the descriptions are more important than the others. Each one adds another piece to what is happening, and all of these descriptions work together. On their own, they don't work so well. And this is how the meaning travels. A physical feeling may become a comparison. That comparison may become a metaphor. The metaphor may keep appearing throughout a person's story until it comes to represent the illness itself. This is how this person is trying to help us as researchers understand what they are going through. Patients are not only using devices like metaphor to make sense of their own illness to themselves, they are also employing them for other people to understand something that cannot be seen directly, namely, what the patient is going through on a daily basis. It should therefore be up to the researcher, the clinician, or the communicator to identify the use of metaphor in the patient's explanations, and then delve deeper into the meaning behind what the patient said. Otherwise, you cannot see their pain or their tiredness or their dizziness, nausea, or anxiety, and you won't ever know either if you are too slow to detect the metaphor. We all make sense of illness differently. Two people can have the same diagnosis, the same symptoms, and even the same treatment, but how they describe their experience may be completely different. There is no right or wrong to it. It is just how people make sense of their illness. Many factors influence how we explain illness: the language we speak, the culture we belong to, our family, our age, our education, the job we do, our belief system, and our previous experiences with illness, the conversations we have had with other people, other patients, other healthcare professionals. All of these shape the way we make sense of what is happening to us. And this should be an important message for healthcare professionals and researchers alike. Good listening means more than collecting symptoms. It means paying attention to how someone is trying to explain their experience. This is how we understand the person behind the words, behind the illness. The same principle applies when we explain health information. Some people want clear facts and numbers, while others understand better through examples. Some people like stories and others prefer visual communication. There is not one perfect way to communicate. We need to find the approach that makes the most sense to the individual. The regulatory framework governing how written patient information is presented should be flexible enough to handle all these approaches. It shouldn't just be slop stuffed into a medicines or device pack. I use the term slop carefully and deliberately. It is not the preserve of the age of AI. Long before AI slop, we've had generations of badly written, badly presented health information of all kinds that resonated poorly with patients. You know the kind of written information I mean, the ones that make a ceremonial, ritualized and tokenistic appearance in patients' biographies. They announce, "Welcome to your new diagnosis," and are partially read once and then never again. You try to get them back into their packs, but they don't quite seem to want to concertina back into their shape. So you throw them in the bin. This is the fate of many of them, if not most. As an experiment, the pharma industry should try to tag leaflets electronically like we do with birds or fish, just to see where they end up. It is not enough for written health information to be scientifically accurate. People need to be able to understand it, trust it, and know what it means for them. How we listen to patients is also vital to patient voice interviews. Instead of collecting quotes or identifying themes, we should also be paying attention to how people construct their explanations. Where do they begin? Is it with physical sensations? Do they start with stories, comparisons? Do they struggle to find the words? Do they return again and again to the same imagery? The battle, the prison, the mountain, the fog. Why do they keep returning to it? What are they trying to explain? This same approach is as relevant to healthcare professionals as much as it is to patients. Healthcare professionals bring their own ways of thinking into every consultation. Doctors, nurses, clinical researchers tend to use medical language because it helps them diagnose, explain, and treat disease. This is the voice of medicine. Patients, meanwhile, tend to use everyday language because it helps them explain what they are living through. This is the voice of the life world. Good communication happens when these two ways of understanding illness meet. I am not saying that patients should suddenly start speaking like they are clinically trained or healthcare professionals to stop thinking medically, but the goal should be about shared understanding for both parties to feel like they are talking about the same thing. Maybe that is what health communication has always been about. Now we return to the journey of meaning. The journey of meaning is neither a theory nor a framework. It was largely an off-the-cuff invention, a thought process to explore how far meaning can travel using figurative language. And this video has been an attempt to map it onto patient voice research and, primarily written, health communication. I'm not certain I mapped it all that well, to be honest. But there is one further implication of the journey of meaning that could be useful when thinking about communicating with patients, and that is that patients and healthcare professionals often begin from opposite ends of the same journey. Patients usually begin with their own lived experience and not the disease per se. They know what their own pain feels like. They know what the fatigue has done to their lives. They search for words, comparisons, and metaphors because those are the only tools that they have for explaining experiences that nobody else can see or feel. Medicine, on the other hand, begins with the disease, not the experience. It starts with diagnosis, anatomy, physiology, and pathology, and often the patient's experience is a mere afterthought or not thought about at all. Maybe this is why so much written health information fails to connect with patients. It often starts where medicine starts, rather than where the patients start. A leaflet on neuropathic pain may begin with an explanation of nerve damage, while the patient begins with burning, electric shocks, or pins and needles. A leaflet on COPD may begin with airflow limitation, while the patient begins with, "I feel like I am breathing through a straw." It is not only a question of mismatching the kind of language used, biomedical versus lay, but it is also because the journey begins in the wrong place. Health information that is effective, therefore, may need to reverse the journey of meaning. Rather than beginning with disease and hoping patients will eventually recognize themselves in the explanation, it may need to begin with recognizable experience and gradually lead the reader towards biomedical understanding. Science and physiology are not replaced or relegated, but this gives space for metaphor and lived experience to breathe and to be acknowledged. The two can be connected. This path allows patients to travel from what they already know about their own bodies to what medicine knows about their disease, meeting somewhere in the middle of different journeys towards understanding. Thank you for listening. Mark Gibson, Kielder, United Kingdom, August 2026. Copyright asserted by Mark Gibson.